The screen door slammed shut behind Ella like a judge's gavel, echoing through the empty kitchen where the scent of cooling cornbread hung heavy as unspoken sins. Her mother's hands, veined like the roots of an old oak, paused mid-wipe on the scarred oak table, the dish rag twisting in her grip as if it could wring out the years of careful composure. "Mama," Ella said, her voice cracking like dry earth under a summer storm, "I'm in love with a woman and it's tearing me apart not to tell you." In that suspended breath, the world narrowed to the flicker of the single bulb overhead, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across Beatrice Whitaker's face. A face carved from the clay of Monroe's unforgiving soil, where women like them learned early to bury their truths beneath layers of church suppers and neighborly nods. Ella had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in the dim glow of her apartment above the hardware store, her fingers tracing the frayed edges of Harper's letters, each word a spark against the tinder of her resolve. But now, standing there in the house that had cradled her childhood tantrums and teenage rebellions, the words felt like shards of glass in her throat. Beatrice did not recoil. She did not clutch her pearls or invoke the Lord's name in that clipped way reserved for Sunday sermons. Instead, she let the dish rag fall to the table, her eyes, those same hazel depths mirrored in Ella's own, softening with a weariness that seemed to pull the room into itself. "Sit down, child," she murmured, her voice a low river current, worn smooth by decades of navigation. "There's more to this table than recipes and regrets." Ella sank into the chair opposite, the wooden seat groaning under her like an old confidant protesting the weight of secrets. The kitchen was a time capsule of their shared history. The chipped blue vase from Ella's 8th grade art fair, the calendar pinned to the wall marking harvests that never quite paid off, the faint outline where Daddy's chair had once anchored the head of the table before the cancer took him slow and merciless. Monroe, Louisiana, with its bayous snaking like veins through the delta, had always felt like a gentle trap, cotton fields blooming white against the poverty that gnawed at the edges, where the Whitaker name carried just enough respectability to keep the whispers at bay. But respectability was a currency Ella could no longer afford. She began haltingly, the story spilling out in fits and starts, the way Harper's laugh had cut through the noise of a Baton Rouge poetry reading 2 years back, her red hair catching the stage lights like autumn fire, the stolen weekends in New Orleans, where the French Quarter's jazz drowned out the echoes of home, the quiet terror of loving someone in a town where different was a synonym for damned. "It's not just the loving," Ella confessed, her hands folding and unfolding like prayer cards. "It's the hiding. Every time I drive back here, I feel like I'm smuggling a piece of myself across state lines. And I can't do it anymore, Mama. Not without you knowing." Beatrice listened, her gaze drifting to the window where fireflies blinked against the gathering dusk, indifferent to the unraveling inside. When Ella fell silent, the air thickened with the unsaid, until Beatrice reached across the table, her palm rough from years of tending the Whitaker rose garden, a plot of thorns and fleeting blooms that mirrored her own guarded heart. "Ella Grace," she said softly, the full name a tether to infancy. "You think you're the first Whitaker woman to stare down this particular devil?" The question hung there, a hook in Ella's chest, pulling her forward into uncharted waters. She searched her mother's face for the punchline, the deflection, but found only a quiet unraveling, like thread pulled from a seam. Beatrice rose then, her movements deliberate as she crossed to the pantry, where the shelves sagged under jars of preserves and forgotten linens. From the bottom drawer, she retrieved a small wooden box, its lid etched with initials that blurred in the low light. B.W. and Ellum, 1958. "This," Beatrice said, placing it between them with the reverence of a sacrament, "is what happens when you love fierce in a place that demands you love quiet." She lifted the lid, revealing a stack of letters tied with faded ribbon, yellowed photographs curling at the edges, and a single locket that gleamed dully, as if ashamed of its shine. Ella's breath caught as Beatrice selected a photo. 2 young women in sundresses, arms linked under a willow tree, their smiles defiant against the black and white filter of judgment. "That's me," Beatrice whispered, tracing the face beside her own, a woman with sharp cheekbones and eyes like polished river stones. "And that's Lydia. We met at the cannery in '57, during that long hot summer when the floods took half the crop. She was from over in Washita Parish, wild as the gators in the bayou, with a laugh that could make you forget the foreman's whip-crack temper." Ella leaned in, the image pulling her under like a riptide. The women in the photo were barely out of their teens, Beatrice's hair pinned in soft waves, Lydia's loose and untamed, a cigarette dangling from her fingers in casual rebellion. Behind them the cannery loomed, a hulking shadow of rusted tin and belching smoke, where poor white girls like them peeled peaches until their hands bled, dreaming of escapes that never came. You. And her. Ella's voice was a thread, fraying at the edges. Beatrice nodded, her fingers lingering on the locket. Lydia gave me this the night we swore we'd run away to California, where the sun didn't judge and the nights were long enough for truths. Inside is a lock of her hair, dark as midnight, soft as sin. She clicked it open, the tiny curl preserved like a relic, and for the first time, Ella saw the fracture lines in her mother's armor. The faint tremor in her hand, the way her breath hitched like a skipped heartbeat. The story unfolded then. Not in a rush, but in the measured cadence of someone who had rehearsed solitude for decades. Lydia and Beatrice had stolen moments in the shadowed bends of the Washita River, where the water lapped at secrets and the cicadas sang cover for their whispers. They shared dreams over stolen sips of moonshine, Lydia wanting to paint the canyons out west, Beatrice harboring a quiet fancy for nursing school. Anything to heal the bruises of a life stitched from hand-me-downs and hollow promises. But Monroe was a jealous lover, its vines of gossip and God-fearing kin wrapping tight around any deviation from the script. "My daddy found out," Beatrice said, her voice dipping low, as if the walls might still carry tales. "He'd always been a hard man, worked the oil rigs until his back gave out, then turned that meanness inward. One evening, he came home reeking of bourbon, dragged me to the barn, and laid into me with his belt until I couldn't stand. Called me unnatural, a blight on the family name." Lydia tried to intervene, sweet, foolish girl. But he turned on her too, swore he'd see her run out of town if she ever came near again. Ella's stomach twisted, the cornbread turning to ash in her mouth. She imagined the barn's dim interior, the sting of leather on skin, the metallic taste of fear. What happened to her? Beatrice's eyes clouded, distant as the horizon. She left that winter, packed a bag and hitched to Shreveport, then vanished into the ether. "I got one postcard from Reno. The lights are brighter here, B. Don't let them dim yours. But by then I was promised to your daddy, Robert Whitaker, the steady boy from the Baptist youth group who everyone said was my salvation. He was kind enough in his way, built this house with his own hands, gave me you. But every night, lying beside him, I'd touch that locket under the sheets and wonder what it might have been like to chase those lights with her." The box yielded more fragments. Letters scrawled in Lydia's looping script, professing love in coded phrases. "The river runs deeper than they know," and pressed wildflowers brittle as broken vows. Ella sifted through them, each one a portal to a life her mother had entombed. The weight of it settled over her like the Louisiana humidity, thick and unrelenting. Here was Beatrice, the pillar of the Monroe Ladies' Auxiliary, the woman who baked pecan pies for widows and quoted psalms at potlucks, harboring a love that society had branded poison. "Why hide it?" Ella asked, though the answer echoed in every averted glance, every forced smile at family gatherings. "All these years." Beatrice closed the box with a soft click, her hand steady now, as if the telling had mended something frayed. "Because hiding kept us safe, Ella. Your daddy's family was old money, descended from the planters who built this town on cotton and cruelty. They tolerated me because I fit the mold. Dutiful wife, good mother. But if they'd known." She trailed off, the implication sharp as a switchblade. "And you, my girl, you were the light that made the shadows bearable. I couldn't risk them turning on you too." Night had fully claimed the kitchen by then, the fireflies replaced by the hum of crickets outside. Ella reached for her mother's hand, the skin paper-thin yet unbreakable, and felt the current of shared blood and shared silence flow between them. For the first time, the Whitaker house felt less like a cage and more like a confessional, its walls absorbing rather than echoing judgment. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, a new undercurrent stirred. The realization that truths unearthed demanded reckoning, and Monroe's watchful eyes would not stay blind forever. Dawn crept over Monroe like a reluctant witness, painting the bayou in strokes of pale gold that did little to warm the chill settling in Ella's bones. She had barely slept, the wooden box a talisman on her nightstand, its contents replaying in fevered dreams. Lydia's laugh mingling with Harper's, two echoes of desire crashing against the rocks of propriety. By morning, Beatrice was already in the rose garden, clippers snipping at wilted blooms with the precision of someone pruning her own regrets. Ella joined her there, the soil damp underfoot, releasing the earthy scent of renewal laced with decay. They worked in companionable quiet at first, thorns pricking fingers like tiny accusations, until Beatrice broke the silence. "Harper," she said, the name tasting foreign on her tongue. "She sounds like the kind of woman who doesn't bend easy." Ella paused, a bloom halfway severed in her shears. "She's a teacher, high school English up in Baton Rouge. Quotes Dickinson like it's scripture. The soul selects her own society. But yeah, she's got that fire. Doesn't hide who she is, not even when the parents complain about agenda in the curriculum." A pang twisted in Ella's chest, sharp as the thorn that drew a bead of blood from her thumb. Harper had urged her to come out sooner, their last argument a quiet storm over crawfish étouffée at a corner cafe. "You can't keep us in the shadows forever, Elle. What are we building if it's all pretend?" Beatrice nodded, her eyes on the horizon where the river met the sky. Lydia was the same. Worked the cannery line but carried poetry in her pocket, little scraps she'd scribble on lunch breaks. Said the world was too small for half-lives. She straightened, wiping soil from her hands, and fixed Ella with a gaze that pierced like sunlight through Spanish moss. "You plan on telling the rest of this town?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading to the edges of Ella's resolve. The rest, the cousins in their sprawling plantation house on the hill, with their debutante daughters and oil-slick fortunes, Aunt Marybelle, whose bridge club dissected scandals over sweet tea, the deacon at First Baptist, whose sermons on family values had once made Ella squirm in the pews. Monroe thrived on such dissections, its social strata as rigid as the levees holding back the flood. Whitakers perched precariously on the middle rung, neither destitute nor dynastic, their respectability a fragile veneer over the cracks of widowhood and whispered debts. "Not yet," Ella admitted, the words tasting of compromise. "But after last night, I feel like I owe it to her. To us." She thought of the locket, now tucked against her skin under her blouse, a secret talisman borrowed from her mother's hidden drawer. It thrummed with Lydia's ghost, a reminder that love once voiced demanded space to breathe. Beatrice's smile was bittersweet, a curve that didn't reach her eyes. "Owe it to yourself more like. But tread careful, Ella. This town's got long memories and sharper tongues." The day unfolded in the rhythm of small-town obligations. A trip to the farmer's market, where stalls overflowed with heirloom tomatoes and gossip flowed freer than the homemade lemonade. Ella spotted Cousin Theo first, his pickup truck idling by the okra bins, his wife Penelope fanning herself with a church bulletin. Theo was the golden Whitaker, heir to the family sawmill, his charm as polished as the cypress he harvested. "Ella darlin'," he called, enfolding her in a bear hug that smelled of sawdust and aftershave. "You look like you've been wrestling gators. Everything all right at the store?" She forced a laugh, the locket a warm weight against her collarbone. "Just the usual, folks wanting nails for dreams they won't chase." Penelope chimed in with inquiries about Beatrice's health, her eyes flicking over Ella with that appraising glint, as if cataloging flaws for later dissection. They spoke of the upcoming Harvest Festival, the beauty pageant where Theo's daughter reigned supreme, and the subtle undercurrents of who was rising, who falling in Monroe's invisible ledger. It was Penelope who broached the deeper waters, her voice honeyed with concern. "Heard you've been spending weekends in the city. That Harper girl, she's the one with the red hair, teaches up there? Folks say she's progressive." The pause was a scalpel, slicing toward the unspoken. Ella's pulse quickened, the market's bustle fading to a hum. "She's a friend," she said evenly, though the word chafed like ill-fitted gloves. "Good people." Theo clapped her shoulder, oblivious or willfully so. "Well, bring her to the festival. We could use some city sparkle amid all this dust." But as they drove away, Penelope's gaze lingered in the rearview, a promise of ripples to come. Back home, the afternoon sun slanted through the lace curtains, turning the living room into a cathedral of dust motes and faded photographs. Beatrice had laid out lunch, cold fried chicken and collards from the garden, but her appetite mirrored Ella's own. absent, replaced by the pull of the past. Show me more, Ella urged, settling on the floral sofa that sagged in the middle like a shared sigh. Beatrice hesitated, then retrieved the box, this time unfolding a letter brittle as autumn leaves. This one's from 59. Lydia had made it to California, waitressing in some dive off Route 66. She wrote about the ocean, said it roared like the freedom we'd chased. Her voice caught as she read aloud. The waves don't whisper lies. They crash and pull, demanding you dive in. I'm holding a spot for you here, under the stars that don't judge our shapes. Ella absorbed the words, envisioning Lydia scribbled by lantern light, the Pacific salt mingling with tears. Did you ever think of going? Every damn day, Beatrice confessed, the rare curse slipping like a stone from her polished facade. But your grandparents, Lord, they were ironclad. Mama with her Bible studies, Daddy with his lodge brothers. They paraded suitors past me like livestock at auction, and Robert. He was safe. Steady. After Lydia, steady felt like mercy. She folded the letter, tucking it away. We wrote for a year, then the postcards slowed. Last one came in 62. Found work in a studio, painting sets for the pictures. Miss your quiet strength, B. Live loud for us both. Then nothing. The silence that followed was a chasm, bridged only by the tick of the mantel clock. Ella thought of Harper's apartment in Baton Rouge, walls lined with dog-eared novels and canvases splashed with abstract longing, echoes of Lydia's unclaimed dreams. What if she's still out there? Ella ventured. We could look. In this day and age, internet records. Beatrice's laugh was a dry rustle, like leaves skittering across the porch. Child, some ghosts are kinder left buried. But for you, maybe it's time to raise a few. That evening as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange, Ella's phone buzzed. A text from Harper. Miss you. Festival this weekend? Let's dance under the stars, no hiding. Ella's thumb hovered, the locket pulsing like a second heart. She typed back. Coming home soon. Got stories to tell. But as she hit send, a shadow fell across the porch. Aunt Marybelle's Oldsmobile, pulling into the drive unannounced, her silhouette sharp as an accusation in the headlights. Marybelle swept in like a nor'easter, her perfume cloying as kudzu, arms laden with Tupperware and tidings. Beatrice, Ella. Bless your hearts. I brought jambalaya from the potluck. And news. Theo's mill struck a deal with the Vicksburg buyers. Whitaker luck turning at last. She settled into the armchair, her eyes darting like minnows, settling on Ella with predatory gleam. Now spill, what's this I hear about Baton Rouge escapades? That Harper fiery one, isn't she? Penelope says the school's in a tizzy over her lessons, teaching the young ones about alternatives. Beatrice stiffened beside Ella on the sofa, her hand finding her daughter's knee in silent solidarity. Marybelle, Harper's a fine woman. Teaches literature, not lifestyles. Marybelle waved a manicured hand, rings glinting like warnings. Oh, semantics. But in Monroe we know what erodes the foundation. Remember cousin Eleanor's boy? That phase in college nearly ruined the family name. Thank the Lord he came around. Her gaze bored into Ella, probing for cracks. You're not. Entertaining notions, are you, dear? With your prospects, stable job, good stock. Men like young Harlan from the bank, solid as they come. The air thickened, charged with the underbelly of blood ties. The Whitakers' precarious perch, where one misstep could tumble them into the debtor's mire below. Ella felt the locket burn against her skin, Lydia's curl a talisman against the tide. Notions? She echoed, her voice steady as bayou clay. Auntie, love isn't a ledger entry. It's the river. It runs where it will. Marybelle's laugh tinkled like shattering glass. Poetic, Ella. But rivers flood, and we build levees for a reason. She rose, smoothing her skirt, the visit's true purpose served. A probe, a planting of doubt. As she drove off, taillights fading into the night, Beatrice turned to Ella, her expression a map of old wars. That woman's got the devil's own hearing. Words spreading. Ella nodded, the weight of it coiling in her gut. The festival loomed. A bonfire of tradition where masks slipped and truth scorched. Harper would come, her hand in Ella's a quiet rebellion, but Monroe's eyes would feast. And somewhere in the embers of Beatrice's untold years, Lydia's ghost urged them forward, a whisper against the roar. Dive in. The Harvest Festival unfurled across Monroe's fairgrounds like a tapestry woven from nostalgia and necessity. Hay bales stacked high as altars, strings of bulbs casting a golden haze over funnel cakes and fiddles, the air thick with the sizzle of smoked sausage and the undernote of diesel from idling generators. Ella arrived at dusk, Harper's hand warm in hers, a lifeline amid the throng. Harper wore a simple sundress the color of ripe peaches, her red hair loose and defiant, curls catching the light like signals fires. "This place," she murmured, squeezing Ella's fingers. "It's like stepping into a Faulkner novel, beautiful and brutal all at once." Ella smiled, though her heart hammered against the locket's chain. Faulkner knew the South's soul, tangled roots and buried longings. They wandered the Midway, past the ring toss where children shrieked in victory, the livestock pens where heifers lowed soft laments. Theo spotted them first, waving from the beer tent with Penelope at his side, her smile a rictus of hospitality. "Harper, glad you made it. Try the ribeye, best this side of the Delta." Harper's grip tightened imperceptibly as they approached, her easy charm a shield. "Mr. Whitaker, pleasure. Ella's told me about the mill. Sounds like you're keeping the old ways alive." Conversation flowed in eddies. Whether cotton yields the parish school's budget woes. But Penelope's eyes lingered, tracing the casual drape of Harper's arm over Ella's shoulder. The way their laughter synced like a shared pulse. It was the dancing that ignited the spark. The band struck up a two-step under the pavilion, lanterns swaying like fireflies on strings, and Theo pulled Harper onto the floor with boisterous insistence. "Show these locals how it's done, city girl." Ella watched from the sidelines, Beatrice materializing beside her with 2 plastic cups of sweet tea, the ice clinking like nervous teeth. "She's got spirit," Beatrice observed, a note of envy threading her tone. "Like Lydia. Danced like she was daring the stars to fall." On the floor, Harper moved with fluid grace, her steps a blend of Baton Rouge clubs and innate rhythm, Theo's boots thumping in rough approximation. Laughter bubbled up, genuine and disarming, until a shadow eclipsed the light. Harlan Graves, the banker with the jaw like chiseled granite and eyes that appraised like collateral. He sidled up to Ella, his cologne cutting through the smoke. "Evening, Whitaker. Saw you from across the way. Thought I'd rescue you from the wallflower fate." Ella accepted his hand more out of reflex than desire, the two-step a mechanical whirl that blurred the faces into a kaleidoscope of judgment. Harlan's grip was firm, proprietary, his breath warm against her ear. "Heard you're considering expansion at the store. Hardware's booming with the casino talk upriver. We could talk terms, you and I. Private." The implication hung, laced with the bank's subtle leverage over the Whitakers' modest line of credit. From the crowd, Harper's gaze met hers, a flicker of understanding amid the spin. "Steady love, we've danced this before." But as the song crested, a murmur rippled through the pavilion, heads turning like sunflowers to the sun. Aunt Marybelle, resplendent in sequin blouse and pearls, had arrived with her cadre of bridge ladies, their fans fluttering like indictments. She beelined for Beatrice, air-kissing cheeks while her voice carried just far enough. "Be dear, such a turnout. Though I must say some guests seem out of place. That redhead, bold choice for Ella." Beatrice's response was mild as milk. "Harper's family, Marybelle. Same as any." But the seed took root, whispers branching through the crowd like kudzu. By the time Ella extricated herself from Harlan's orbit, the air hummed with speculation, eyes sliding away when she reclaimed Harper's side. They slipped away to the riverbank, where the Washita murmured dark secrets under the moon, fireflies winking like conspirators. Harper leaned against a cypress knee, pulling Ella close. "Your aunt's got a stare that could curdle cream. What's the play here, Elle? We face it together, or—" "Together," Ella cut in, her lips brushing Harper's in a kiss that tasted of salt and resolve, the locket pressed between them a third heartbeat. "Mama told me her story last week. About Lydia. She hid it all for me, for the family. But seeing you out there dancing like you own the night, I can't hide anymore." Harper's eyes softened, her fingers tracing Ella's jaw. "Then let's burn the masks. Tell me about Lydia." Under the canopy of stars, Ella recounted the fragments. The cannery summers, the river trysts, the belt's cruel lash. Harper listened, her silence a bomb until she spoke. Your mama's a survivor. But survival's no life if it's half-lived. What if we help her find Lydia? Close the circle. The idea bloomed, fragile as a moonflower. Back at the house, after the festival's embers died, they gathered in the kitchen, Beatrice at the table, the box open like a wound. Harper's presence was a gentle intrusion, her questions probing without pressure. That postcard from Reno, any leads? Studios in the 60s set painting. We could search archives. Beatrice's hands trembled as she smoothed a photo. It's been 60 years. She's likely dust by now. Or not, Harper countered softly. People like Lydia, they don't fade easy. By midnight, laptop screens glowed with tentative queries. Census records, artist registries, faded mentions in Hollywood trade racks. A hit surfaced, a Lydia Moreau, credited on low-budget westerns in the early 70s, vanished after a fire in 78. Nevada, Beatrice breathed the name a prayer. She always said the desert called. Hope flickered, tentative as candlelight, but dawn brought the backlash. A call from the store. Inventory delayed, a supplier balking on terms. Heard some talk, Whitaker. Folks get skittish. Then Maribel at the door with feigned concern. The auxiliary meeting, whispers about Ella's friend. Harlan's pulling strings at the bank. Says the family's exposure is risky. We protect our own, you know. Beatrice's face hardened, the survivor surfacing. Our own includes Ella. Tell Harlan the Whitakers pay their debts. In full, and without interest from busybody kin. The line was drawn, invisible yet indelible. That afternoon, as thunderheads gathered over the delta, Ella and Harper drove to the river, the Washita's current a mirror to their turmoil. It's escalating, Ella said, gravel crunching under tires. The town's closing in. Harper turned, her hand on Ella's thigh. Then we push back. With your mama. This isn't just your fight. It's hers too. In the downpour that followed, they made love on a blanket amid the reeds. Rain mingling with tears, bodies a defiant hymn against the storm. But as they dressed, soaked and spent, a distant rumble, not thunder, signaled the gathering gale. Theo's truck, headlights piercing the sheets of water, his face grim in the cab. Ella, he called over the roar. Family meeting. Now. The elders are calling you out. The reckoning had arrived. Monroe's levees cracking under the flood of truths long dammed. The Whitaker family elders convened in the plantation house on the hill. A sprawling relic of antebellum grandeur, its columns scarred by time and termites, verandas sagging under the weight of magnolia branches heavy with blooms. Rain lashed the windows like accusations as Ella, Beatrice, and Harper arrived, the gravel drive crunching under tires slick with mud. Theo greeted them at the door, his usual bonhomie eclipsed by strain. Penelope hovering behind like a sentinel. Inside, he muttered, ushering them into the parlor where gas lamps flickered against wallpaper peeling like old skin. The room was a tribunal, Uncle Elias at the head, patriarch of the Sawmill Empire, his Bible open on the mahogany table like a gavel, Aunt Maribel perched on the settee, her pearls a noose of propriety, Cousin Eleanor's widower, dour as the Delta fog, flanked by deacons from First Baptist. Harlan Graves lingered in the corner, ledger in hand, his presence a silent foreclosure. The air reeked of pipe tobacco and polished oak, underlaid by the faint rot of secrets festering in the walls. Elias cleared his throat, his voice a gravelly sermon. Beatrice, Ella, this grieves us. Word spread from the festival. Unnatural alliances, jeopardizing the name we've bled for. The banks reviewing loans, the auxiliaries withdrawing support. We've turned blind eyes to much, but this invites the flood. Beatrice stepped forward, her posture unyielding as the cypress she grew up under. Elias, you've turned blind to plenty. Debts shuffled, lands grabbed from sharecroppers. But love? That's no crime. Maribel interjected, her fan snapping like a whip. Love within bounds, B. Scripture's clear. Man and wife, fruitful and multiply. Ella's confusion. It's the city's poison, that Harper woman peddling it. Harper, silent till now, met the room's stares with steady fire. Confusion? That's your word for authenticity. I've taught your kids, Eleanor's boy included, to question, not conform. And Ella's no victim, she's chosen. The room bristled, Elias's knuckles whitening on his Bible. Chosen ruin, you mean? The Whitakers built this town. Fought Yankees, tamed the wild. We don't bend to whims. Ella's voice cut through, raw and resonant. Built on whose backs, uncle? Slaves, then tenants like Mama's folks at the cannery. And whims. Mama hid her truth for you, for all of us. Loved a woman named Lydia. Buried it to keep this fragile peace. But peace bought with silence is just a prettier cage. Gasps rippled, Maribel's fan stalling mid-flutter. Beatrice's revelation hung. A thunderclap in the parlor's hush. Elias's face purpled, but Theo leaned forward, eyes widening. Lydia? That summer girl from the floods? Folks said she ran off with a trucker. Folks lied, Beatrice said, pulling the locket from her blouse, its gleam a quiet defiance. She ran because your father, our father, beat the truth out of me. And I let her go to save what scraps of family we had left. The elders shifted, discomfort worming through their ranks. Harlan cleared his throat. Be this. Complicates. But blood's thicker. Than ink on a loan? Harper interjected, her tone steel wrapped in silk. Or prejudice. Review away, Mr. Graves. Ella's store thrives on community, not credit. Penelope uncharacteristically spoke up. Enough. Theo. Remember your cousin's face? We rallied then. This feels familiar. Theo nodded slowly, the first crack in the facade. Elias, maybe it's time we listen. Not judge. The meeting fractured then, voices overlapping in a cacophony of scripture and sentiment. Rain drumming an urgent counterpoint. Elias adjourned with a curt prayer. But the air had shifted. Less monolith, more mosaic. As they filed out, Maribel waylaid Beatrice in the hall. Her whisper venomous yet laced with something like awe. You carried that all these years? For us. For survival, Beatrice replied, chin lifted. Now it's Ella's turn to live. Outside, the storm broke, sheets of water cleansing the drive as they piled into the truck. Harper drove, Harper's knuckles white on the wheel, Ella's head on Beatrice's shoulder in the back. You did it, Ella murmured. Faced them. Beatrice's laugh was watery. We did. But reckonings echo. The echo came swiftly. By morning, the store's phone rang off the hook. Loyalists pledging support, detractors boycotting with pious fervor. Harlan called, terms softened. Personal matter, Ella. Business as usual. But the real tremor struck at noon. A package on the porch, unmarked but heavy with intent. Inside, yellowed clippings from 62. Lydia Moreau, obituary faint but fatal car wreck outside Reno. Visiting kin. Alone. Beatrice crumpled. The kitchen floor her confessor as sobs racked her frame. Gone. All this time and she was. Ella held her. Harper fetching tea with steady hands. She lived loud, Mama. For you. That last postcard. Live loud for us both. She knew. Grief hollowed the house that week, mirrors draped, meals untouched. Ella and Harper tiptoed through it, their love a quiet anchor. Nights curled on the porch swing, stars indifferent witnesses. But loss fermented into resolve. We go to Reno, Harper proposed one evening, maps spread across the table. Scatter something for her. Honor the circle. Beatrice agreed, her eyes shadowed but sparking. The desert. She'd like that. The road trip west unspooled like a film reel. Interstates slicing through piney woods into Texas plains, Beatrice in the passenger seat recounting cannery tales, Lydia's quirks, her habit of humming blues under her breath, sketching faces in the peach pulp. Ella drove stretches, Harper's hand on her knee, the locket shared now, passed like a relay baton. They skirted Dallas's sprawl, camped under Oklahoma stars, the vastness eroding Monroe's grip. Reno greeted them with neon scars and casino hum. The desert air dry as absolution. They found the crash site memorial. A pull-off with a weathered cross, wildflowers nodding in the wind. Beatrice knelt, releasing petals from Lydia's imagined garden. Roses pressed from the box. I lived quiet, she whispered to the wind. But you taught me the roar. Ella and Harper stood sentinel, their fingers laced, the moment a bridge across generations. Back on the road, lighter now, Beatrice turned to them. Thank you, both, for digging up what I buried. But homeward bound, the delta's pull tightened. A voicemail from Theo. Elias relented. full support for the store. But Maribel's stirring again. Auxiliary vote tomorrow. Stand with us. The vote loomed, a microcosm of Monroe's soul. Accept or exile. Beatrice faced it alone, her speech in the church basement a quiet thunder. We've hidden enough. Ella loves true. Let us love her back. Votes split but mercy prevailed, narrow, grudging yet real. In the aftermath, fractures mended unevenly. Harlan proposed dates Ella declined with grace. Maribel sent Jam with a note. Forgive the blindness. Theo hosted a barbecue. Harper at the grill, laughter tentative but growing. Yet the deepest healing brewed in stolen moments. Beatrice and Ella in the rose garden, pruning thorns, sharing silences rich with understanding. One night, as cicadas chorused, Beatrice handed Ella the locket permanent. Wear it. Live loud for all of us. Ella clasped it, Harper's arms encircling from behind. The river ran on deeper than judgment, carrying their truths toward freer waters. Autumn deepened in Monroe, leaves turning the bayou banks to flame, but the chill that settled in the Whitaker house was of a subtler frost, one born not of rejection, but of the fragile bloom following revelation. Ella returned to the hardware store with renewed vigor, shelves restocked under Harper's volunteer hand, customers trickling back with averted eyes and mumbled apologies. Water under the bridge, Theo declared at Sunday supper, though the undercurrent of his glance toward Beatrice spoke volumes. The elder's concession was tactical, not tectonic. Beatrice, for her part, navigated the auxiliary with the poise of a tightrope walker, her locket now visible against her collar, a silver rebuke to prying fingers. Maribel's barb softened to backhanded compliments. Bold choice B, suits your spirit. But the women's circle hummed with fresh grist. Not condemnation but curiosity, tales of hidden kin surfacing like carp in shallow water. Heard about the McKees' aunt up in Memphis, one whispered over quilting frames. Lived with her roommate for 40 years. Turns out. Ella watched her mother unfurl, petal by petal. Hosting book club readings of Carson McCullers, her voice steady on lines of lonely hearts. Volunteering at the parish clinic, her nursing dreams dusted off in quiet consultations. Yet nights brought the undertow. Beatrice at the kitchen table, box open, letters reread until the ink blurred. She'd hate this maudlin fuss, she'd say, but her eyes betrayed the ache, a hollow where Lydia's laugh should echo. Harper sensed it first, her teacher's intuition sharp as a red pen. Your mama needs more than memorials, she confided to Ella one crisp evening. As they walked the river trail, mist rising like spirits from the water. Reno closed a door, but what about opening windows? Art classes, maybe channel Lydia's fire. The idea took root, sprouting in the community center's drafty hall. Beatrice at the easel, brushes resurrecting bayou bends in ochre and indigo. Ella enrolled too, their canvases side by side. Hers tentative strokes of Harper's profile, Beatrice's bold sweeps evoking phantom willows. Like her sketches, Beatrice murmured, dabbing emerald. Wild but true. Progress was a meander, not a sprint. Harlan persisted, flowers arriving at the store with notes of second chances. His persistence a echo of societal script. Redeem the wayward with convention. Ella rebuffed gently. My heart's spoken for. But the encounters wore, each a reminder of the town's lingering leash. One afternoon he cornered her in the lumber aisle, voice low. Ella, think of the future, house heirs. This phase with Harper, it's youth's folly. I can offer stability. She met his eyes, the locket cool against her throat. Stability without soul is stagnation, Harlan. I've seen what hiding costs. He recoiled, but not in anger, in something akin to envy. Your mama's tale. Theo told me. Damn the Delta for its chains. Word of Beatrice's classes spread, drawing unlikely pilgrims. Penelope, tentative with watercolors, a deacon's wife, her abstracts fierce as repressed hymns. The center became a neutral ground, canvases veiling vulnerabilities. But betrayal brewed in shadows. Maribel, ever the weaver, unearthed a relic. A 58 ledger from the cannery, entries in Elias's scrawl noting LM's dismissal disruptive. She presented it at the next auxiliary, not as weapon but history's lesson. Be carried that scar alone. We owe her grace, but Ella's path? It risks the young ones. The vote she'd forgotten resurfaced, twisted. Not inclusion but cautionary exclusion. Harper barred from school events. Ella's store boycotted anew by purist pockets. Theo intervened, his mill's payroll a leverage. Family first, Maribel. Or we all sink. Crisis crested at the winter solstice fair. Lanterns strung against December's bite. The air crisp with pine and possibility. Ella and Harper manned a booth. Handcrafted ornaments etched with river motifs. Lydia's influence in every curve. Crowds milled, cheer tempered by sidelong glances, until Harlan approached, not with propositions but a check. For the center. Anonymously. Maybe. Redemptions in the giving. Harper accepted it with a nod, her wariness thawing fractionally. Appreciated. But real change? That's in the seeing. The fair's climax was the bonfire. Flames leaping high as pent-up breaths. Beatrice took the mic unscripted, her voice carrying over the crackle. Monroe's roots run deep through floods and feuds, loves lost and found. Tonight we honor Lydia Moreau, who painted our skies before fleeing west. She taught me. Art's in the living, not the hiding. She unveiled a canvas, the Washita at dawn, willows entwined, a woman's silhouette bold against the light. Gasps, then applause, tentative as first thaw. But betrayal's sting came post-midnight. A call shattering the afterglow, Theo voice ragged. Elias, he confessed. Back in 58, after the beating, he wrote to Lydia. Not warning threat. Told her to stay gone, or he'd ruin her kin in Washita. She left because of him. Our blood. Beatrice, overhearing on speaker, went still as stone. Elias knew? All these years. The confrontation brewed overnight, storm clouds gathering anew. Dawn saw them at the plantation, Beatrice marching the veranda like a general, Ella and Harper flanking. Elias met them in the study, aged and shrunken, Bible clutched like shield. B.I. protected us. The family's honor. Honor. Beatrice's voice cracked like ice. You shattered lives for a lie. Lydia died alone, thinking I chose silence over her. Elias wept then, confessions spilling. The letter burned unread, regrets fermented into silence. Forgive an old fool. The delta drowns the weak. Beatrice's rage crested, then ebbed, leaving exhaustion's tide. Weakness is the hiding, Elias. Not the loving. She turned away, the group retreating to the truck, the house a monument to mended fractures. Healing's path wound through Yule. A quiet Whitaker Christmas, Harper's kin joining via video from Oregon, tales exchanged like gifts. Beatrice gifted Ella a sketchbook, for your Harper portraits, and in return received a locket duplicate, Lydia's curl halved. Share the weight, Ella said. Yet the solstice's echo lingered, betrayal's aftershock. Maribel called truce over eggnog. I meddled from fear, my sister's secret buried young. Let's unearth together. Monroe softened incrementally. Auxiliary doors ajar, store ledgers balanced. Ella and Harper planned a spring wedding, small riverbank under willows. Beatrice officiated in spirit, her blessing a vow. Live loud, my girls. But in quiet hours Ella traced the locket, wondering at freedom's cost. The Delta whispered back. Truths freed souls but scars remained, tender teaching. Spring erupted in Monroe with the ferocity of pent-up longing. Azaleas exploding in pinks and whites along the bayou. The air humming with the promise of unfurling. Ella's wedding approached like a current, swift and inevitable. The riverbank cleared of debris. Chairs borrowed from the community center. Wildflowers gathered in mason jars as if Lydia herself had arranged the bouquet. Harper's family arrived from Oregon, her brother a lanky photographer, capturing candid frames. Her mother, a botanist with soil-stained hands, tending the arbors with maternal care. This Delta's got soul, she said, inhaling deep. Fierce like my girl. Beatrice orchestrated with quiet command, her canvases now adorning the Whitaker porch, Washita sunrises, abstract hearts in crimson and gold. The auxiliary contributed reluctantly. Maribel's lace tablecloths, Penelope's pecan pies, a nod toward inclusion that tasted of compromise. Elias sent regrets via Theo, rheumatism, but a check followed, earmarked for a unity fund. His penance etched in ink. The eve brought rain soft as benediction, pattering on the tin roof as Ella and Harper sat the kitchen table. Invitations scattered like confetti. Beatrice joined them, a bottle of Lydia's imagined vintage, Pinot from Napa, uncorked in tribute. To circles closed, she toasted, glasses clinking like chimes. Stories flowed. Harper's first crush on a debate club girl, Oregon rains mirroring Louisiana floods. Ella's teenage journals, coded with asterisks for stolen glances at the library's poetry section. Beatrice's cannery whispers now voiced without wince. Sleep evaded Ella that night, the locket a talisman against her breast, dreams weaving Lydia and Harper in a desert dance. Dawn broke clear, the river a silver ribbon under azure skies. Guests assembled, Theo's family in starched linens, deacons mingling awkwardly with Harper's free-spirited kin, Harlan Graves a solitary figure by the water, his gift an engraved sign. Whitaker Landing forever home. The ceremony unfolded in vignettes. Harper walking the aisle on petals, her eyes locked on Ella's like anchors. Vows exchanged in the willow shade, words simple as river stones. I choose you in flood and fair. Beatrice read from McCullers. The heart is a lonely hunter, but together we hunt no more. Rings slid on, Harper's etched with waves, Ella's with roots, sealing promises amid murmurs of approval, pockets of dissent silenced by the moment's gravity. The reception spilled into laughter. Fiddles dueling with Oregon folk tunes, children chasing fireflies prematurely hatched, toasts ranging from Theo's booming, to love that log's true, to Marybelle's tentative may it bloom unpricked. Harlan approached Ella during the cake cutting, his face etched with uncharacteristic vulnerability. Beautiful Whitaker. Forever. Well, happiness suits you. She clasped his hand. It does us all, Harlan. Find yours unscripted. As dusk fell, the bonfire reignited, flames leaping to the rhythm of shared histories. Beatrice pulled Ella aside, the river lapping at their feet. You did it, child. Broke the chain. Not alone, Ella replied, glancing at Harper, twirling with Beatrice's class students in a circle dance. And you painting telling. Lydia's roaring through you. Beatrice's eyes glistened, the locket twin glinting. She is. And forgiving Elias called yesterday. Wants to visit her memorial Scattermore. Old men's about time. The night waned in embers and embraces, guests departing under a canopy of stars. Alone at last, Ella and Harper slipped to the truck, honeymoon bound for New Orleans jazz and beignet, a reclaiming of stolen weekends. But Monroe's pull lingered, a gentle tether now not chain. Months unspooled in verdant grace. The store expanded, a craft corner for local artists, Beatrice's classes swelling with hidden talents. Harper transferred to Monroe High, her curriculum a bridge, literature of the marginalized, drawing wary parents into dialogues. Auxiliary meetings evolved, discussions of kinship beyond blood. Marybelle confessing her buried aunt over tea. Yet humanity's arc bent slow. Whispers persisted, grocery line judgments, pew-side silences, but they eroded, worn by visibility's tide. Elias's visit to Reno marked a milestone. He and Beatrice at the cross, his apology gravel-voiced. I chained us all. Free now. Petals scattered. Forgiveness a desert wind. Ella's pregnancy, via donor a deliberate choice, rounded her year later, Harper's hand on the swell, Beatrice's sketches chronicling the miracle. A new Whitaker, she said. Unburdened. Birth came in summer's heat, a daughter. Willow Lydia Whitaker. Eyes hazel as the river, cry fierce as cicadas. The naming ceremony at the center drew the town. Elders, artists, reformed bigots, a tapestry of mended cloth. Beatrice held the babe, locket brushing tiny cheek. Live loud, little one, for the women who whispered first. Years layered like silt. Willow's first steps on the porch, Harper's tenure, Ella's mayoral bid, quiet revolution. Betrayals faded to footnotes, scars to stories told at suppers. Monroe transformed incrementally, its Delta soul embracing fluidity. Pride flags on the bridge, classes on hidden histories. In quiet eves, Ella and Beatrice walked the river, Willow toddling between. We survived the flood, Beatrice said once, Willow's nodding assent. Better, Ella replied, Harper's arm linking hers. We swam. The current carried on, truths buoyant now, bearing them toward horizons Lydia glimpsed. Free, fierce, forever entwined.